I recently spent a week with the 2025 Kia EV6 GT line all-wheel drive, and of course, being the Ioniq guy, I had to run some tests. So I did an efficiency test, I did a route on I-95 up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire and back to the Boston area, and I also did a DC fast charging test. Both the 2025 EV6 and 2025 Ioniq 5 are both quoted as going 10 to 80% in 20 minutes, so I wanted to put the EV6 to the test and make sure that it did meet that. And I also wanted to see if there was any major difference in terms of driving range at highway speeds. Now, both my 2025 Ioniq 5 limited all-wheel drive and this Kia EV6 I was borrowing are rated for almost the exact same range in mixed driving. The Ioniq 5, 269 miles, and the Kia EV6, 270. So on paper, there's basically no difference. So I took it out on the highway on my standard loop, and what do you know? There's basically zero difference. Ioniq 5, EV6 both averaged 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. When you multiply that efficiency by the usable battery capacity of about 81 kilowatt hours, that gives you a 70-ish mile per hour highway range of about 251 miles, which really isn't too bad. You got to remember, to meet that 270 mile range rating, there has to be some lower speed driving mixed in there. That is how the EPA tests these cars. This is in ideal summer conditions. Once the temperature drops, you should expect about a 20 to 30% decrease in overall range. So just keep in mind, wintertime going to be a different story. But yeah, I was super thrilled to see that both cars are basically the same because that's what they advertise. So pick your car. If you want an EV6, get an EV6. If you want an Ioniq 5, get an Ioniq 5. You're not going to pay any penalty in terms of range. Now, I will say the Ioniq 5 average speed over my test was just a little bit higher at about 72.6 miles per hour versus 71 miles per hour for the EV6. So the Ioniq 5 might be just a hair bit more efficient, but that is really within the margin of error. I'm not going to say one is more efficient than the other based on a 1.6 mile per hour difference. So for all intents and purposes, they basically have the same efficiency. So with the highway efficiency test out of the way, I wanted to run my charging test. Do you need a set of all-weather floor mats for your car? Then let me tell you about LinerX. LinerX designs and manufactures high-quality, laser-measured floor mats at a great price. They're made from TPE, which is a mixture of rubber and plastic, so they offer good traction and flexibility as well as strength when you need to remove them, so you're not going to dump their contents all over your floor. If you've owned floor mats from competitors, then you know that those are often made from a much harder material that tends to warp over time, but that doesn't happen with LinerX. They feature a simple and classy looking pattern with a lip around the entire edge so liquids won't spread and get on your floor. They also sell cargo liners as well as second row seat back cover mats. I've used them in my last 3 cars and they've held up admirably. You can check out their offerings on their website at linerx.com or Amazon through the links in the description below. So my new go-to spot for running these DC fast charging tests is Mercedes-Benz high power charging stations. They just opened one up not too far from my house in Connecticut. And it is a beautiful site. It's in a great location over at Evergreen Walk in South Windsor. They've got 8 charging stalls, but what is beautiful about Mercedes-Benz high-power chargers is that almost every site has 2 chargers that only have 1 handle. And that means you can pull up to 400 kilowatts without sharing power with anybody else at the site. So for running a DC fast charging test, I don't have to worry about somebody pulling in and stealing a bunch of power from my half of the charger. So I was able to time it perfectly. I got to the charger at exactly 10%. Plugged in, and it immediately ramped up to just about 200 kilowatts, and then it jumped up eventually to its about peak of 255 kilowatts or so, and after just under 21 minutes, the car was fully charged. So this particular charging session was a little bit worse than the best session I've got with my 2025 Ioniq 5. So that's going to hit 80% any second now. There's 80%, 20 minutes, 5 seconds. But again, it's a negligible difference. You're talking maybe 30 seconds or so. And I do want to call out the fact that when I ran this test, I was also testing Lectron's CCS to NACS adapter, and I only realized after buying it and running this test that it's rated for 500 amps at 500 volts. This is a high voltage car, so I can't recommend you purchase this cheap adapter and use it for your Kia EV6 because it doesn't come with a CCS to NACS adapter from the factory. A to Z does have a 1000 volt rated adapter that you could use with an EV6, so I would recommend going and checking out them. But I really don't think the adapter was what caused this charging session to be just a little bit worse than the Ioniq 5. I think there's some other factors that might have come into play, like outside air temperature, battery temperature, those kind of things will really play into even just a little bit of a difference. Another thing that I love about the Mercedes-Benz high power charging stations, and it's not specific to them, Iona stations do this too. Anybody who's using an Alpitronic HYC 400 has the charging curve graphed out on the charger screen. Makes my job really easy. I can just quickly put this on screen for you guys to get a visual of what the charging curve looks like. Just really nice to see all that nerd data. And also Mercedes-Benz high power chargers are using the ChargePoint network for their back end. So when you show up, you don't have to do anything on the charger. You can activate it through the ChargePoint app. You can tap to pay with your phone, whatever you want. I've found them to be super reliable. Just usually in really nice locations. I have often used the one in Lee, Massachusetts, out in the Berkshires. My fiance and I were just out there last weekend for a little vacation and went to that location twice. It was never completely full, nice and clean, garbage cans, lighting, everything. They're really growing their network, and if you got one in your area, definitely check them out. Now, I know a lot of you who bought these cars and have never had a Ioniq 5 or EV6 before the 2025s. You don't really care that the charging is around 20 minutes. But for somebody who drives a 2024 Ioniq 6 and had driven a 2022 Ioniq 5 that did do the same amount of charging in 18 minutes, it just doesn't feel right that for the new refreshed models, the charging got worse. Now, I know it has a slightly larger battery, which gives you a little bit more range, but even still, it just doesn't feel right to me. I really hope that when we see the fully redesigned Ioniq 5 and EV6 in a couple years, that we will see some major breakthroughs in terms of charging that put them even further ahead of everybody else. I mean, they already are, but it would just be really cool to see them push the limits a little bit further, maybe under 15 minutes, 10 to 80%. That would be really nice to see. Maybe as low as 10 minutes. Who knows what they have up their sleeves. So yeah, I'm happy to report that the 2025 Ioniq 5 and EV6 are basically in parity with each other. They both charge at the same speed. They're both as efficient as each other. So it really comes down to looks and some of the features that you get on the GT line, because there are some differences. So anyway, guys, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. Check out my store at ioniqguy.com for accessories for your 2025 Kia EV6 and earlier EV6s as well. I've got a front cup holder enlarger. I've got charging adapter holders, rear cup holder enlargers. And of course, the automatic door locker is now working on the 2025 EV6. Plug and play. Kia somehow made it even easier to install on the refreshed EV6 versus the old EV6. Literally no tools required. You should be able to do it in under 2 minutes. If you're hesitant, check out the reviews. There's over 300 positive reviews. People really love the device, the ease of installation, and just the peace of mind of knowing that your doors are going to be locked. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.